All right, let's dive right into this explainer and explore the high-stakes, hyper-competitive world of India's NEET exam. Today, we're objectively unpacking the controversies surrounding the 2024 exams, and we're going to see how those early warning signs ultimately snowballed into a complete system breakdown by 2026. This is a genuinely fascinating look at the logistical nightmares of running one of the world's absolute largest standardized tests, and exactly how vulnerabilities in that system were exploited. To untangle this massive, multi-year controversy, we're going to hit 5 key areas. Number 1, the standardized testing pressure. 2, the 2024 NEET controversy. 3, the Supreme Court verdict. 4, the 2026 exam cancellation. And finally, 5, investigations and arrests. Starting with Section 1, the standardized testing pressure. We literally can't analyze this system's failure without first looking at the sheer unimaginable volume it was built to handle. Picture this. In 2026, a staggering 2.27 million aspirants competed for them shot at the medical field. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. Over 2.25 million students all sitting for a single exam, the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test, or NEET, which acts as the one and only gateway for undergraduate medical admissions across the entire country. But, here is the brutal math of the situation. Imagine being one of those students, knowing that for every single seat available, there are about 21 applicants fighting for it. For those 2.27 million hopefuls, there are only about 108,000 total MBBS seats available nationwide. And those are roughly split right down the middle, about 56,000 seats in government hospitals and 52,000 in private colleges. This kind of intense bottleneck creates a hyper-competitive environment where literally a single mark can alter a student's entire future. It makes the exam a massive, glaring target for manipulation. Moving to Section 2, the 2024 NEET controversy. What makes 2024 so compelling is that the cracks were already showing, and they were documented at the absolute highest levels of the judicial system. The official legal foundation for our 2024 analysis comes directly from the Supreme Court of India's extensive judgment on the matter. Specifically, we're looking at the writ petition of Vanchika Yadav versus the Union of India. The court had to thoroughly investigate multiple, very serious claims of fraud, logistical failures, and academic discrepancies just to figure out if the 2024 exam was completely compromised. So, what was the most alarming discovery? Honestly, it was a ridiculously low-tech breach. In May 2024, an individual simply gained unauthorized access through the rear door of a school strong room in Hazaribagh and then photographed the exam papers right out of a supposedly secured trunk. Now, the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, found that this wasn't some nationwide broadcast. It was actually an isolated leak, reaching about 155 identified beneficiaries, mostly concentrated across Hazaribagh and Patna. And as if the leaks weren't enough, right, we also had a massive academic controversy. A physics question had 2 conflicting options marked correct by the National Testing Agency, all because of an outdated textbook. Well, an expert committee from IIT Delhi had to step in and resolve that only option 4 was scientifically accurate. When the Supreme Court ordered the scores to be recalibrated based solely on that one correct option, the number of perfect 720 scores drastically plummeted from an unprecedented 67 all the way down to just 17. And the logistics? Some of these flaws sound almost fictional. Highly sensitive, career-defining exam papers were actually transported from banks to exam centers in unsecured e-rickshaws. Yes, you heard that right, e-rickshaws. On top of that, there was a massive miscommunication where 12 centers distributed the wrong bank's question papers, handing out Canara Bank papers instead of the intended State Bank of India ones. 8 of those centers actually forced students to complete the entirely wrong set of papers. Which brings us to Section 3. The Supreme Court verdict. The absolute biggest question for the court was whether these 2024 irregularities warranted canceling the entire exam for over 2 million students. They had to weigh the rights of the honest majority against the actions of the fraudulent few. Data from IIT Madras brilliantly illustrates the court's point here. Think about it. If a massive systemic leak had occurred, you'd expect a huge spike in success rates in the suspect cities. Instead, the analytics revealed that success rates in Hazaribagh, Patna, and Godhra actually dropped or remained completely normal in 2024 compared to previous years. There was simply no localized spike in top scores to indicate mass malpractice. Since the authorities could clearly identify and segregate the tainted students from the honest ones, the court made an impartial call and ruled against canceling the exam. They realized that forcing a retest would cause immense disruption to the academic schedule and unfairly disadvantage millions of innocent candidates, especially those from marginalized backgrounds. But look, nobody was pretending the system was perfect. Recognizing these glaring vulnerabilities, a high-level 7-member reform committee was swiftly established. Chaired by former ISRO chairman Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, this group was tasked with completely overhauling exam security, fixing those logistical nightmares, and implementing advanced data security protocols to make sure this kind of disaster never happened again. All right, Section 4, the 2026 exam cancellation. Despite all those planned reforms, the infrastructure simply buckled under the pressure 2 years later, leading to a complete systemic failure. The way the 2026 exam collapsed was just breathtakingly fast. On test day, May 3rd, leaks were immediately discovered in Sikar and Latur. But unlike 2024, this could not be contained. Just 9 days later, on May 12th, the National Testing Agency had to officially pull the plug. They canceled the exam for all 2.27 million students, handed the entire investigation over to the CBI, and scheduled a massive, frantic retest for June 21st. So what actually forced the complete cancellation this time around? Well, a chemistry teacher in Sakar noticed that a so-called guess paper circulating widely on WhatsApp right before the exam wasn't a guess at all. It had an astonishing overlap of nearly 140 questions with the actual real exam paper, heavily focused on chemistry and biology. The leak was just way too wide. The breach was absolute. Finally, Section 5, Investigations and Arrests. Once the CBI took over, they uncovered an entrenched network that went way, way beyond mere student cheating. This was a highly organized, massively lucrative operation. This whole thing is a masterclass in what happens when utter desperation meets opportunity. We aren't just talking about someone breaking a padlock on a trunk anymore. The CBI arrested insiders, including an NTA translator named P.V. Kulkarni, who had direct, privileged access to the papers. They arrested pediatricians like Dr. Manoj Shurd Latur, and coaching professors running secret sessions that charged desperate families anywhere from 2 lakh to 10 lakh rupees just for dictated answers. The network was so clandestine that the main distributors literally had their contacts saved in their phones as God. After witnessing the exam barely survive in 2024 through data segregation, and then completely crash and burn in 2026 due to internal corruption and digital leaks, it really leaves us with this final provocative thought. When 2.27 million people are fighting tooth and nail for just over 100,000 spots, can a flawless standardized test ever truly exist at this massive scale? Or is the pressure and the temptation simply too high for any system on Earth to withstand?